welcome Jim Love.
Thank you so much, Pedro. It's great to be here. Honored to be on, and I care deeply about this, and really looking forward to our conversation. It's a beautiful Sunday, and ready to rock and roll with you. That's the story.
All right, sir. Awesome. I thank you. Yes, it is a beautiful day in Texas, and then you are in
Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And
Milwaukee.
yes, it rained earlier, but it's sunny out. That's just what happens here. It rains for an hour, and then the sun comes out, and then the rest of the day is beautiful. It's pretty typical.
Well, here it is so hot that I saw a bird, pick up a worm with a potholder. Yeah, that's kind of hot. Okay, I'm sorry. I will. Okay, I'm done with the
I
jokes.
love
All
it.
right. So I want to thank you, sir. This is a huge honor. We have a lot of topics to cover, so let's get started.
Yes, sir. Perfect.
All right. So, do you remember when you first began to stutter?
Yes, I do. It was probably back the first time I noticed it was like second grade, third grade, right around there. And like being asked, like I think I was called on in a classroom to answer a question and got nervous. And when that happens, typically that's when my stutter comes out. And yeah, I remember sort of having that, being very embarrassed, and and then realizing that, like, my parents obviously knew and all that kind of stuff, but it was when I was really kind of aware of it. And yeah, it definitely, and then you focus on it. That you just, you're zoned in on it, and that's all you can think of. And so it got kind of worse and worse from there.
All right. And so I think we are twins. All right, Jim, because let me tell you, in school, when because we had to read out loud. We had to read
Yes.
out loud, and so that only happened only one time to Pedro, and it was horrible. And nothing,
Hmm.
because you had a paragraph, you know, and when and knowing, you know, that I'm the, you know, um, the third speaker, your heart, your heart, is pounding.
You feel it coming. Yeah.
Yes, it's like okay, here is what I have to read out loud. And so I got up, um,
Totally.
and nothing, n- Jim, nothing came out except for a lot of repetitions, and then you heard the laughter,
Hmm.
and then I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. So
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
here's so here's what happened. When I sat down, the teacher had the kid behind me read my paragraph. And
That
so I
sounds about
said,
right, because the teachers don't know how to do it either. They're like, okay, next guy, like, go ahead.
yes, yes. Y- You know what? And that's when I said, this ain't never going to happen again. And so every time we had to read out loud, I would raise my hand and go to the restroom. So I spent the bulk of my school in a restroom stall. But, that's just me. Yeah. Yeah. So it's extremely difficult.
It could be a safe space. I mean, you got to have your spot. And yeah, I 100% get it. I'm with you.
Oh, yes, sir. And does it run in your family? Are there any other family members who stutter?
It's a great question. I think my grandpa did a little bit, but not anyone else that I'm aware of, at least in my family. And I haven't asked about, like, cousin, like, I mean, the cousins who are in my life, everyone like that. No one that I'm aware of. But I think this didn't come up much, but I feel like my grandpa had something. But I'm really kind of riding solo in that sense, which actually I kind of like, because it's my thing. Like, in a weird way, it's sort of like I kind of had that as the obstacle and a thing that I faced, and can forge my own path from it, if you will, which has dictated a lot of what I've done in my life up to this point. And so that part, like, not having the commonality, was almost like it's my thing, in a weird way. But yeah, I mean, I can imagine having a support system would have been a little bit easier, but either way, I was able to take it and be very subjective with my approach and how I was going to handle something like that, which I thought was helpful, for me. But that's super like looking back now, like when I was like that age, probably didn't think that way, but reflecting on it, yeah, I think it was a little bit helpful in that sense.
Um, have you ever had speech therapy in school, and if you did, was it helpful?
Yeah, I went through it. So we actually had a woman in my grade school that did speech therapy, and I did it for, if I had to guess, like 6 years, maybe 5 years, 6 years. I don't remember exactly how long it was, but it was helpful to an extent. Like I think it was helpful to go through some exercises, and I remember like bits and pieces of that, but there was like it was really a confidence thing, and I wouldn't say that like me going into speech therapy gave me confidence. Like I think it was, and if anything, I was like, oh, I need help. It was just a weird way to. I mean, we did some stuff that worked, but I think generally, like what was actually a little bit more helpful beyond speech therapy was like regular therapy and going to counseling and like really actually doing specific exercises that raised my confidence level, because that's really what it came down to, is like the more I got it out of my head, the better I was. But speech, I mean, the woman that taught it was good, was effective, but like it wasn't. I don't know if that was just wasn't for me or what, but I don't remember ever walking out being like, I nailed it. That was great. It was always like, oh, I had to go to speech therapy again. When it got more like into a holistic view of therapy versus just on speech, I think was a little bit more impactful for me. But that being said, speech therapy is amazing and people should go if they need it. But there's certainly a big fan of it. It was just like I never remember it being like the thing that was going to be my way out or my confidence builder, if you will, which is interesting because I know a lot of people that really are passionate about it, and I guess it just depends on what approach works for the next person, which is kind of the beauty and also the like scary part of doing that type of journey of you never know what's going to work for you. But I started it when I was I think probably second or third grade, right around there, and then went through a couple years at least, and then in high school I started going to more of the regular therapy counseling for different reasons, not just for stuttering, but it helped to have that. And then there were some supplementary things that my parents put me through, like in grade school, that were not just speech therapy. But yeah, now that I think back, I had a lot of different resources, which I'm really grateful for. But yeah, speech therapy was definitely there. The first thing I went through for sure was speech therapy.
How cool! See, and um, you know, you know, but back in my day, because I'm like what, twice your age, but back in my day, in the late 1970s, Mr. Jim Love, speech therapy,
Yes.
yeah, speech therapy. It was, I mean, they would call your name over the PA, and so each room had a PA,
Mm.
and so every time they would call your name, the entire school knew that Pedro Peña had speech therapy. Go to the office.
Oh,
It's
that's
like, okay,
brutal.
great.
Yeah.
I mean, here I am. I'm isolated, but now I'm more isolated because now the whole school
Yeah.
knows.
That's,
Yes,
you're like in trouble. That's what it feels like. That like you're
yes.
going to the principal's office or
Oh
something.
my!
Yeah. It's
You hit
brutal.
it on the nose, and
Yeah.
back in my day, in the late 1970s, they had this little tape recorder that had this oh it was it was a a cardboard paper that had a magnetic strip at the end, and so the speech
Mm.
therapist would have me read out loud, and then it would record it, and then I would hear it, and then it's like, oh great, that's what I sound like. And so it's like it's like the hits just keep on coming, Jim. The hits keep on coming.
They never stop. They never
And
stop.
it
Yeah.
never stops. And then also, back in my day, the goal was to get me to speak like everybody else. Everybody else. And so I
Hmm.
am extremely thankful nowadays. Nowadays, you were talking about the whole the whole 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 holistic approach. So where they
Hmm.
cover
Hmm.
everything, the therapy, the bullying aspect, the mental health aspect. I wish I had
Hmm.
that. You know, back in my day, because it wouldn't have been so dark. But I'm
Totally.
happy that it has evolved, and that therapy has adapted the mental health aspect, because it is much much needed.
Totally. No, it's huge. I mean, I'm a huge, part of my, as you know, I'm a keynote speaker and a motivational speaker, and part of my talk is about that, about really taking on, this, whether there's a stigma or whatever it might be, of seeking out help and seeking out, just advice and an unbiased opinion from a professional. And I mean, it changed my whole life, and I wouldn't be speaking, the way that I do it now if it weren't for having that, and I still go. It's an important part of my life, and yeah, and it's so interesting because you're right. I mean, the resources have just like multiplied and then some as years have gone on, and it's just more like they're there. Like some schools have it free. Some, it's just like they offer. Like my college had all that for free, and I barely used it, but now looking back, I'm like that would have been great, and now I got to pay, but it's important, and I think people, to drop whatever stigma that is, to go and get the help you need, that you'll then find impacts every part of your life, including this, and it's really important, and I felt it very much so.
Just spot on, sir. Spot on. Okay, now as we are talking about school, how was your school life? Because you have the hormones, you got the peer pressure, and then let's add stuttering to the mix. How was your school life with having a stutter?
Yeah, it was difficult at times. I fortunately, my stutter is not super severe, and it typically comes out when I'm like nervous, or and I was able to kind of remove myself from some situations for it. Like didn't always happen, but I mean, I got bullied. I think a lot of kids did, and that didn't help. I would say, like, there was a lot of like, okay, today, I'm thinking about like the Adam Sandler joke, and like that came out in the 90s when I was in school, and like for sure had that happen. And I sometimes you just get used to stuff like that, and say, but I had kind of a tough class, like in sixth, seventh, eighth grade. Where I was just like the acceptance thing is what I wanted, and I definitely, I think that, like, generally me, focusing on my stutter, like, maybe not as confident in other areas of my life. So I was like not talking to girls. I just, that was not even something I thought of, right? And maybe I was friends with, whomever, but not, that definitely impacted different parts of my life, because that's all you can think of. I mean, it's like kind of going up to someone with a red nose on, and like trying not to think of the red nose. It's just like you're going to have that in your head, and then I would like, a lot of times, and this still happens, like it's like follow-up questions for some reason. If I have to think about what I'm going to say, that's usually when it comes out. So like if a teacher didn't hear what I said, I was like, oh, never mind. Like I would just kind of like, I knew the situations where it would come up, and I would naturally try to avoid those. But I had a good school life, though. It wasn't like it impacted everything. I mean, I was active. I did a lot, student council, sports, all that kind of stuff, which was kind of a getaway from it. When you're playing basketball and playing volleyball, like you're just shouting, and you're not, that's not, so I was in those moments. And I know for your sake too, like obviously you're acting, like that's like you have things where you're a different person when you're out there. So when I'm like competing or doing something like that, that's when it was more fun. But it was like the day-to-day school life, I certainly would come out, and I wasn't thrilled about it. But it didn't, by the time I got into high school, I sort of accepted parts of that. But up until about eighth grade, because the nature of like my class and all that. And it's so interesting because I don't think about this that often. I think I kind of blocked out some of that part of my life in a way, not like in a really bad way, but I just sort of moved on, and kind of found myself after I was 18 in college and stuff. So I don't find myself thinking about my childhood that often, which is good and bad, I guess, in a way. But I had, there were some difficult parts, but it was, I was able to kind of just keep moving forward, and like start to develop some humor around it. Like my love language is humor. That's the, like, I just kind of like, I can make fun of myself very easily, and so that helped. That was certainly helped. Like if someone would make fun of me, I'd be like, oh yeah, that was dumb, or something, and just like kind of have that. But of course, internally, that then makes you feel like kind of a clown in a way, in like you're, so it did have a psyche impact, I think, and my brain just sort of was wired to be like, it's okay, make fun of that, which is not the best way to approach it. It was the way that I knew when I was 12, essentially. So it's funny to, like, your question, like, part of me is like, yeah, it was a little tough. The other part was like, I was okay. I moved on and made it work, and but I think there's probably ingrained parts of my being now that came from that I'm not even aware of. It's sort of like the unconscious parts of it. So yeah, I love that question, because you really have to think and reflect and be like, okay, go back to 12 years old. Like, you tune that out, especially when it's not the best thing in the world. If it was awesome, I'd be like, I remember everything. And then now I'm like, interesting, there are probably some difficult moments that I forget about a little bit. And that's which is why reflection is so important, and why I love that question.
See, and I mean, um, the mind is a powerful thing. Our memory
Hmm.
is a a very powerful thing. And so, in my school days, um, you know, I kept to my myself, because no one wanted to hang out with the kid who couldn't talk, or you know or
Hmm.
when I did talk, I would spit and sputter and da, da, da. And so I hung out in the janitor's closet. And so to this day, Jim Love, to this day, when I go into a grocery store and if I smell like Comet or Clorox, it brings me back to when I was in the janitor's
Oh my
closet
gosh.
eating my lunch in school. And I was like, oh, I mean, okay, I'm trying to move on, trying to
Is
move
that
on.
is
But
that a like is that a good memory for you? Like, like this, does that bring about good stuff, or does that bring about like, like really tough moments?
it brought, I mean, you know, it's, twofold. There, I was at peace. I was at peace because I didn't have
Right.
anyone, bullying me, mocking me, you know, and yet I was alone. I was,
Mm.
it was just
Yep.
me
Yep.
and the mops and the brooms. It's like, and Comet and Clorox and cleaning. And so, I mean, yeah, I mean, it was,
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah, it was.
I totally get it. Yep. Totally get it.
Okay, now, do you have any advice for parents, teachers, and speech therapists with regards to children who stutter?
Mm. It's a great question. I think, and I'm thinking about folks who really I inspire me, or like people that really accept me. And for parents and teachers, particularly the speech therapist, the speech therapist one is a little more difficult, because I know that's a professional practice, and I think for the first two I'll focus on. I mean, my parents did a great job, but really, like, I think just like being there and giving your student or your child like the space to first of all acknowledge it, like that this is a thing, and also, and this sounds cliche, but that they're not alone. I mean, I think the first several years of this, I didn't know any other kids that had this, or they hit it really well, and I was like, I'm weird. Like, I'm weird that I have something like that pops up, and like, why can I not control this? All that kind of stuff. And so I think recognizing that, it's probably easier now. I think, to your point, when you were growing up, even when I was, and now there's probably better communities, I think, of people to find that have that type of thing, even with children, and struggle with something. But that would be huge. I think for me, if I knew that there was other kids like me, I would not be nearly as fearful, as I was, or and like trying to hold it in. But so that accepting and that validation, is really big. And and I think too, like, particularly, for teachers, it's so difficult, because I can imagine being in situations where, like, all the students are, I mean, I would consider, like, and I don't know if this would be more harm than good, but like, maybe not always calling on that kid to speak, or even pulling them aside and like asking them, if they're comfortable, like, if this is, like, what can I do, and maybe, put it in their field, like, what can I do to make you feel better, or make you feel more comfortable, and then giving them that space to actually speak it, and maybe trying that. I certainly don't want there to be like an ostracization, but also having the student feel comfortable to share it. And then for parents who are, of course, with their kid, more of the time than the teachers are. I think like a big thing is like not finishing their sentence for them, or like not like jumping ahead, and that, I think there's a lot of power in giving someone the opportunity to just to speak, and however long it may take, whatever that looks like. And it's difficult because I think when you're trying to move, we're very busy, and we're moving and going, and particularly for like a parent with like a 10-year-old, like you're like, okay, they're probably going to say something foolish because they're 10, like I get that part, but letting them, giving them the space to like just to say it, and however long it takes, and being there for them. But those things to me would really stick out as like small but tangible, like in high impact moments that you can create for either your student or your child, that will really help them understand it, validate, know that like that's more people have this too than just you. Many more, I would say millions of people have this than they realize, and then like giving them that space to really be who they are, and operationalize as a human. It's like, okay, I can do this. I'm going to be okay, and in a judgment-free zone, right? All of that stuff, and is really important. So, yeah, that would be. I know that's a couple things, but I like thinking back to like what I wish I had. My parents again were wonderful, still are, and they get it. But my teachers, I don't think they did, and I'm not sure there's like training around that or anything like that, and to really take it upon themselves to learn, understand, and then act on what they can do, what they can control, would be really impactful. So I love it because there's a lot of growth there. And I know you, again, with the speech therapist part, I'm not as sure of, because I don't want to start dictating like their profession, but there's probably ways that they can approach that are different, and just evolve in a practice, I would imagine.
All right, so that is awesome, awesome advice. Cool, cool, cool. All right, so we are gonna switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about jobs,
Mhm.
employment. How is it with having a stutter?
Yes, when I first started in my career, it was difficult, because I'm not good on the phone. That's like, particularly and of course when you're talking like a client, you're nervous, and on the phone. I'm always better in person. That's always when I'm better, but on the phone, I get my own head, and so I had to just like learn how to accept that, and it took a while. I'd say it probably took a year into like working professionally until I was like 23 to really be like, it's okay if that comes out. Like, it's not like, I always thought it made me feel, either look younger or inexperienced. That was like the two things that came into my head when a setter would come out, chatting with a prospective. I worked like in the life insurance industry for a while, so chatting with a prospective client would be a little difficult. But for me, in the midst of me starting my career of like my professional life, I was starting my speaking career too, and really trying to lift that off. And what happened through that, I was fortunate enough to have this, but my stuttering became something I talked about pretty openly, when I spoke, and it became something that actually empowered me a little bit more, and like know that I can go and do this public speaking. So that in turn affected my professional life as well. And in the last couple of years, I'll just like call it up, be like, well, I don't know what I just said there. Let's move on. Like I kind of make it more of a humor thing, and I'm okay with it. I've accepted it, and the main thing that I found, like, I've now been working for, let's call it 10 years, right? And the more I recognize like the progress I made, the more I'm like, this doesn't define me. That's pretty much what it is. I like, this is, it's like I really moved, and this happened a couple years ago in my professional life. I really moved from a stutterer to a person who stutters, and that was like, I know you and I talked about that on my podcast a few months ago, but that was a huge lift for me to kind of like, this is going to define me and who I am. I'm a leader. I know I am. I can do that. And every now and then, I'm gonna sound funky. It's okay. Like, it's gonna happen, and I'm okay to accept that. So it probably the first year or two was a little difficult, and then when I started speaking and started becoming more confident and more open, and then in turn, that really impacted my life as a worker and also a speaker, and those two things grew together, and now I just talk, and I roll with it, and I'm confident with that. And every now and then I'll call it out and be like, that's what's up. I actually have friends, like close friends, in the last year or two, who didn't know, because I, again, I don't, my stutter doesn't come up that much, but who maybe a year and a half ago, a friend, we were like out to dinner and it happened. And she was like, "That was weird." I was like, "Yeah, I do that." And she's like, "Really? I didn't know." We had a whole conversation. And I was like, "Yeah, cool. You can ask me whatever you want, And I think that really helps to navigate conversations. But yeah, work life wise, took a little while, but and I'm not going to pretend like I like it right now. I mean, it's certainly something I wish it didn't come up that often, but when it does, it does. And there's not much I can do. But it also, if I'm focusing on it, that's when it happens more often. If I'm just being creative, if that happens, it happens. And I also think that like probably more people than I realize I work with probably do it too. And it just doesn't come up, as much, and we don't share it. So I love that question because it's an ongoing journey in a way as well.
Ooh, yes, and uh, 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 um, um, as um, as um, as you were talking, I was taking down some notes, and you know, you you had touched on the 2 points that I think for me were just monumental. Okay, number one, the telephone. Um, uh, uh,
Mm.
you know, okay, so back in my day, Mr. Jim Love, back in the late 1970s, we had the rotary telephones. And so every
Oh
time I would
yes.
dial, you, you would hear back. I said, "Oh, great! Now the phone is making fun of me." And so Pedro just cannot catch a break. And so I was
Can't
like, "Okay,
escape.
I mean, I'm telling you, Jim Love. I'm telling you. I mean, it's like, it's like, no, stop. And so the telephone was my nemesis,
Mm.
because I
Yeah.
would always
Yeah.
ask people. I would pay people. I would ask family members to make phone calls for me because I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it
Mm.
because I
Yeah.
had that 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 one experience, and you hit on this earlier, where I still, it it lives rent free in my head, and it has for
Hmm.
almost 40 years. And so I was trying to order a pizza, you know, back in the early 80s. And so I called, this pizza place, and I mean, I blocked, I repeated, I blocked, I repeated. There was a little heavy breathing, and the person on the other end said, "When you learn how to talk, call me back." And then he hung up
Oof.
the phone. And I mean,
Goodness.
it's just like a ton of bricks. And I know that I need to get it out of my head, but there are I mean, words are powerful. Words are powerful.
Mm.
And
Yep.
and it's a daily process. It's ongoing. Like what you said, it's ongoing. And so having having um having told you that, I had to learn how to use a telephone. And so what I did, I hopped on
Mm.
eBay.
Yep. Yep.
I bought an office telephone that looked just like the ones that we had in my office. And so then what I would do every day, I did this every day for half a year. Every day I would practice making phone calls and practice receiving phone calls. And so I go, bring, this is Pedro Peña. How may I help you? And so for 6 months, I practiced every
Oh
single
wow.
day, because I had to, because it's called survival, Jim. Survival. I,
Hmm.
I,
You
I
have to.
mean,
Yeah.
because I have to pay rent. I have to eat. I mean, it's called
Hmm.
survival. And so for half a year, I practiced having conversations in my head about anything. And then after that half point, let me tell you, Jim, it became boring, all boring.
Right.
It became
Yeah.
boring.
Yeah.
And then in my head, it's like, no big deal. And so when I had to apply it to the real world, when my office telephone rang, because the old Pedro when it would ring, I would go to the restroom. Hello, my school days. However, after that half year, you know, when I heard it ring, I picked it up because for half a year I
Hmm.
was practicing and rehearsing and practicing, and so I would pick it up. Hi, good morning. I'm Pedro Peña. How may I help you? And what I tell a lot of people, I don't believe in perfection. I don't. But
Hmm.
um, but as I had, I practiced and practiced and practiced. It made permanent. Practice makes permanent. And now, ooh, I can hop on
Hmm.
the telephone and talk for days and talk for days. You know. Okay, now,
That's great. I totally agree. Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, and then also point number two, you were talking about disclosure. Woo! Let me tell you, Jim Love, I disclose every time. Every person I speak to, at the grocery store, at the post office, I mean, I tell everybody because when I have a block, my eyes close and my arms go all over the place. So I,
Yeah.
I don't want the other person to call the 911 because there's a person who's having a medical emergency, maybe a seizure. It's like, no, it's just I'm having a block. I'm having a repetition. I'm here to educate you as to what you're going to see and
Hmm.
what you're going to hear because if if you know that, you are prepared. And so, I mean, I
Exactly.
to everybody, Jim, everybody. Okay, now I want to hop in to this new topic of the new normal. The new normal. We are coming
Hmm.
out of this pandemic for 2.5 years. We are coming out of it. How did you adjust? Because I ask every person who stutters because I am just curious. How did you adjust to a life of headsets and webcams?
It's a good question. So for in two ways. So I guess my speaking life and my professional life. With for speaking wise, like there was a ton of opportunities that just became virtual, and I pulled it off and was able to do it. Professional wise, half of my communication was already virtual because I work with a lot of people who are all over the country. But then for folks who I usually was in an office with, would just like have to do it, and I just had to get used to it. It was one of those things where like, because when I was in person, yeah, I felt good, I was confident, and then like over the phone, particularly in moments where I was my job was never that secure. I was in a support role for sales, and if anything's going to go quickly when in during COVID, it was going to be that. And so I found myself being nervous a lot and working longer and into the night, things like that. And it took a while to figure that out. I'm still not a work from home person. I don't like it. I prefer to be in an office, and that was really interesting. I'm not sure. I mean, I was fairly anxious for. I have a nice combo of anxiety and stuttering, which is just wonderful. But I was I for like the first part, I would say like May of 2020 and through the summer, I was pretty anxious a lot and kind of shut down a bit, I would say, and that's usually what happens to me. Like I'm not as talkative, or I'm not like eager to get on the phone, but my friends would have like Zoom calls and stuff. We would do like happy hours and things like that. And I didn't find myself like struggling as much stuttering wise as I did with anxiety and with a little like couple of small bouts of depression, like that type of thing. And but I didn't totally see those two things align. So I was actually okay in like in terms of that part. I think really I had to kind of figure out a new way of life and like with communicating with people certainly, but it didn't impact me as much as I was anticipating it to. And I think because there was just so much going on where like I wasn't focusing on that as much. I was trying to figure out like I'm hoping I could keep a job, trying to speak more, trying to like get out more, go for walks, like see people as much as I could, all that kind of stuff. So I think because there was so much in my head that I was trying to balance, like I didn't find myself going into a call of like, hope I don't stutter today, something like that. So it was I was actually okay on that front, and thankfully. and and have now been accustomed to doing this, and being virtual and communicating with people like that, and not being like you have to do it a lot, and so I'm not as nervous, or and I have confidence with it, and I'm able to take it on and do it to the best of my ability, and that's all I can ask for. And I think that mindset was helpful, and I just knew like I can adapt, I guess, adapt and adopt, pretty quickly if I need to. So I think that was helpful to have mindset like I'm just going to do this because I have to. Like what else am I supposed to do? And then when you're kind of all in like that, when you just sort of have to be and can't really think, your confidence level is like, okay, well let's do it. Let's see what happens. And it took me a while, but I think that the anxiety threw me off for probably 3 months or so, and then I kind of knew what was happening, what I needed to do, and then when I knew I was like secure in my role, essentially, then I was like, okay, well let's do this, let's see how we can make the best of it and stay positive throughout the whole thing. And so all that stuff was here, and stuttering didn't make its way to the top as much. So I think it worked out okay, and I've been able to adapt even more, and now like do go to the office and do stay at home when I need to, and just you just kind of, as humans, we adapt. That's what we do. We have to, and we're able to make it work. And since everybody was doing it, I think that was helpful too. It was kind of like we're all required to change parts of our life right now, and it's not like I'm the only one that has to do something. That would be a lot different if it was just me. I would really be full on panic mode. But because that wasn't the case, and I was able to take it inch by inch with people around me doing it, then it's like, okay, well we're all excuse me, we're all in this together, and which I wish was still the phrase that we all rolled with, but it was helpful to have kind of like this human connection of we have to do this, so make it work, and I think I did well enough to where I was able to kind of keep going.
Ooh, let me tell you, Jim, I was the opposite. I was good with human beings. I was good. I mean, with
Yes,
all that hard work
yes.
and practicing with human beings, I was at the point where I was good. And then in March of 2020, I was handed a webcam and a headset and said, on Monday, we're doing everything on Zoom. And I'm like, what? And so my heart went all the way into my left shoe. And so what I do, Jim, is I spiral. I always, the worst possible case scenario is what I do. How it's how I grew up. It's how I was raised. The worst case. And so I thought,
Totally.
can I do this? I mean, and what if I can't? I have a mortgage, I mean, I have people who are relying on me. And so so on Friday afternoon, I was handed the headset and webcam. And then the next day I spiraled for 24 hours. And then on Sunday, I said, okay, a plan of action. I have to adapt. I mean,
Got to do
you
it.
hit you hit
Yeah.
it spot on. I have to do this. And so I called up a buddy. I said, hey, I got to do this Zoom thing, so I need your help. And and so he and I had practiced on Zoom. I practiced my presentations and da 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 da. I mean, over and over and over again. Because as you know, practice makes permanent. Practice makes permanent.
Yes.
And so, after a certain point, I thought, okay, I th- I'm okay. I'm okay. And then, you know, l- l- let me tell you, Jim, when I had to do it, for work, I said, okay, I have to breathe, you know, and then also, I learned to not look at my webcam. I learned to not look at everybody
Mm,
else.
yeah.
You know, I am only going to focus on the PowerPoint presentation, and then, da da da.
Hmm.
But I had an icebreaker, and you may borrow it. It's fantastic. So here is my icebreaker. Hi, good morning. I'm Pedro Peña. I'm your trainer for this morning. I do have a speech impediment. I have a stutter. So if at any time I get hung up on any word, I want you to give me 8 hours and hopefully that word will come out. But if you know what I'm trying to say, help you, help me, help you, because I believe that teamwork makes the dream work. And then after,
Perfect.
and then after, I look at all of their webcams and they have smiles. I said, okay, I got it out of the way. Got it out of the way. And then also, I
Mm-hmm.
told him, if I freeze, it is not your internet provider. It's just Pedro having a block. FYI. And so I love humor because, I mean, like you, humor helps me. Humor helps, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
tremendously, and then,
Mm-hmm.
um, as I was doing it over and over and over again, you know, it gets a little easier, a little easier. However, I
Mm-hmm.
still have to work. I still have to work at it. I still have to work at it because, I mean, it is an ongoing process. And
Mm-hmm.
I have my days where it's great, and then I have my days where it's not so great. However, I stop, I breathe, and I carry on. I carry on. And the awesome part, Jim,
Yep.
the awesome
Yep.
part, if I have a severe block, they are helping me out. Now, I know we're all different. I know we are different in our journeys. But for Pedro, at this age, I'm 51. I'm exhausted, Jim. So if I'm having a block, I don't want to pass out on Zoom. And so I will ask them for help and they will help me. And that is wonderful because it is
Mm-hmm.
it is the it's the definition of teamwork of teamwork.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so, but
I love it. Yep. Yep.
yeah, I mean, this
That's
whole new normal has pushed people who stutter out of our comfort zones
Oh, very much
tremendously.
so. Yeah, that part's without question. Yeah, and it's just like it's a matter of how you handle it and like what you're going to decide to do and move forward and know. I mean, I love that approach. It's so true. Like humor and just being transparent right away. Being like, here's what's up. Here's me. And that's the story. Any questions? And it's just good because people then feel comfortable. They feel like they can be transparent
Yeah.
too, and it really helps the whole culture shift a bit. That's a great approach.
Yes, it is all about education. It's all about education,
Mm-hmm.
24/7.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now, so I want to ask you this. I don't know if I mean if this ever happens to you, but do you go through phases in your speech? Like on Monday, you're doing great. On Tuesday, it's in the pits. On Wednesday, you're doing great. I mean, do you go through those, you know, uh, um, speech phases?
Yeah, a little bit in the sense that like I'll have days where I'm more anxious than and other days, or just kind of like that pops up, and that impacts everything. So if I have a day where I'm just like feeling off, feeling a little bit anxious or a little just uncomfortable, I would say that those are days when I'm more likely to have stutter pop out, in more ways than one. And then on the days where I wake up and I'm like feeling better and confident, and then I can go in and not really focus on it, because what happens when my body feels that way, I'm hyper focused on all like the negative stuff. That's always it. And so then I'm thinking about like, oh, I'm sure I'm going to ruin this conversation, or that's usually what comes up. So I have to like talk myself out of those, and then that's why I'm really positive. You probably, I know we follow each other on Twitter, and that's always been like my way to burst out of whatever rut I'm in, or those moments, because like the stuff I'm thinking of is like I have to put my mind into it, be like, okay, maybe someone else needs to hear this too, and roll with it. And that's always been, other than humor, always been kind of my mechanism to move forward. It's like not everything is awful. Like I have to get out of whatever funk this is, and it might take a moment. It might take a day or two, but knowing like, and that helps me. And I know that people read it, et cetera, and I'm repeating it to myself, and I can move forward. But I would totally say that those days where I'm like that, and just down a little bit is where then I'm thinking about like where I'm gonna mess up, and that's usually when I probably will stutter, thinking in that way. But the days where I'm like confident, like ready to roll, it's like, all right, whatever, it just kind of keeps rolling and goes. And I know situational when I'm like that too. Like if I'm at something where I'm in my element and I'm like speaking or whatever, like then I'm good to go. I'm not thinking about anything. I feel good. It's just amazing how your body reacts to like the context of where you're in as well. And I found that to be so true for me. And so I try to put myself in those situations where I'm feeling good and I'm feeling like I'm ready to rock and I'm in the right spot. But yeah, I would say I've never heard it phrased like that before. So I like that when you kind of go in and out of like the funks. And I think it is true. I mean, we have that, and your whole body kind of responds to it in a way. So it's either positive or negative, and then that's when I try to get myself back into the positive as much as I possibly can, acknowledging what had happened and then moving forward in a way that's going to actually make change in my life.
I mean, um, you were talking about the negative self-talk, and so I mean, good Lord, Jim, I had it growing up. I mean, he told me
Mm-hmm.
everything. I mean, you can't talk on the phone. You can't order at a restaurant. Why are you even going to try? You can't even do it. And so, at at a certain point, Jim, I gave him a name. And so what I found out. Okay, now we're all different. What I found out for Pedro
Mm-hmm.
is if you if you if you if you name your greatest fear, it no longer controls you. And so what I did, I named him
Mm-hmm.
Oscar the Grouch. Oscar the Grouch. And so, you know, whenever I had to do something like a conference a telephone call, or whatnot, he would just pop up and then I would shut him down. I said, Oscar, go away. Go away, Oscar.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, and then I would have it all balanced with my positive talk that it's going to be awesome. You're going to be great. It will go without a hitch. And when I did that, woo, a whole new world opened up, Jim. Whole new world opened up. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I got you know what? I got rid of Oscar. Yeah.
Heck yeah, good. No, I'm with you. You have to acknowledge when you're having those moments. I mean, we're our own worst enemy the majority of the time, and I always think about what would I say to a friend if they were going through this? And I'm like, what are you saying to yourself right now? Like, why don't you talk to yourself the way you would talk to your friend? And I've never named it, but I love that idea because it's important to like acknowledge it. It exists. It's a thing. It's a voice that you have, and it's up to you to drown that out and move on to what actually matters and what's going to really make an impact for you as you continue to move forward. And I think that's such sound advice.
Okay, now here is a head scratcher. Okay, I ask all my guests and then it's
Hmm.
split right down the middle, 50-50. So I want to ask you this. All right, so when you are alone, Mr. Jim Love, can you speak without stuttering?
Yes, when I'm alone, definitely I can. I have started talking out loud with myself more often to like just get the thoughts out there vocally, but I'm not nervous to talk to myself. I think that's the big thing is like I can I've never I've never talked to myself and then noticed when like, oh, that was kind, when I'm just speaking out loud and in front of me. I won't be judging myself for talking, and so I think that's the big thing. And I'm not like I'm also because with myself I'm not hyper focused on anyone's emotion of what they are, because I that's what I get with other people is I'm so hyper focused on how they're responding to me and like the nonverbals, which is a good thing and a bad thing for the record. Because when you get hyper focused, you don't get away from it. But I can read people's nonverbals pretty well, which I appreciate. But that's when I really kind of get into my own head. But when I'm just talking out loud, I think I talk very. I mean, I obviously use the word normal, but like in that sense of like I haven't had those moments pop up that I'm aware of. Are you like that too?
Okay, so I am your opposite twin, Jim. So let me tell you, when I am alone, I stutter, I block, I repeat. But here's the other head scratcher. I mean, at a higher level, Jim, a higher level head scratcher. Okay. Um, you do know this. However, I don't know if everyone else knows this, but I am a voice actor, and so
Hmm.
when I have a script that I am going over, I am in the zone because for me, I'm acting. There is a joy to acting. And you were talking about when you're in your element. This is Pedro's element. When I am acting, I don't
Mhm.
know how or why, but a switch goes off in my head. And when I have a script in my hand and I'm behind the microphone, I hit record. It's 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 you know it's you know it's you know it's it is it is magic. I do not
Mhm. Mhm.
stutter. However, when I'm alone and talking, you know, to myself, as we all do, I go over the schedule,
Mhm.
in my head for the day. Da da da. I block and repeat. However, you know what? We're all different. We're all different. So yeah, it's a
Mhm.
head scratcher.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's really it's fascinating, and that's why this is so subjective, and I think it's really cool to learn from each other when it's like this is what this person goes through. Just to have an awareness of that community of people of what possible struggles can be, I think is important. I love, and to your point, being in your element. I that's like when I'm speaking or when I'm like around students or people that want to grow as leaders, and that's where I'm at. Like I am full throttle. I'm all in. I'm energetic. I have it going. I know how that feels, and I'm like I want to be that way more often. And that's what I'm super comfortable, and I'm not thinking about any of my weaknesses or anything like that. I have this mindset of I can do it, and I'm set. I'm good. Etc. So yeah, with your voice acting, same thing. It's like that's how I feel speaking. I'm like I am all in, let's get it. It's like it's a good feeling, and I want to have that
Yes.
replicated as much as I can in my life.
I mean, you know what? Whenever I am handed a script. In my head, it's like, it's go time. Let's do this. It's like, yes, I'm gonna rock this
Yeah,
out.
dude.
I don't care if it's a beer commercial or a shampoo commercial. Pedro gonna rock it out. I'm in my element. I'm in my element. It's all good. It's all
Yes,
good.
yes, exactly.
Okay, now, so has this ever happened to you, Mr. Jim Love? Let's say, you, you were at a doctor's appointment, and so you walk into the building, you walk into the office, and there's an admin person, and they greet you, da da da, and they ask you what is your name, and then you have a block. And then after a certain point, there's a pause, and it's a little bit longer. And then the admin person asks, "Did you forget your name?" Has that ever happened to you, Mr. Jim Love? I am curious.
Not like a name piece of information, but if they ask me like describe what's wrong and like something that's not off the script necessarily of stuff that I would have as personal info, that's when it would come out for me. That's when I'm like, I can get my name, birthday, all that kind of stuff, and they're like, so what are you experiencing? I'm like, well, and if I just start explaining something that like I'm not, I don't know what it really means. I'm trying to like go through this, and that's because I'm not like confident in the thing I'm describing, and so it'll come out, and I get jumbled, and so it's usually then not on like the name part, but I know exactly the moment you're talking about, but like it's like the further qualitative description where I'm just like I have no idea what I'm talking about, and it shows. That's usually it for me. And then like I laugh it off, and I'm like, fair enough. You know what I was trying to say. Blah blah blah. Let's just go in the waiting room, and I can get out of here.
Let me tell you, Jim, if I had a quarter for every time that happened to me, I would have a house in Greece right now. Because I cannot tell you how many times it has happened. And so the old Pedro, I would get angry, because
Mhm.
I have all the words in here, but they're just having a hard time coming
Mhm.
out. And so I don't want you to help me. That's the old Pedro. Well, now that I'm older and tired,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, so here is where I take the opportunity to educate and to raise awareness. This is
Yeah.
what I have. And here's what you're going to see and what you're going to hear. All I want
Mhm.
is your patience, your respect, and your eye contact. I may not give you my eye contact.
Uh-huh. You just
But
keep it
I
here though.
want,
Yeah.
yes, but I want your eye contact to make sure that you know what I'm trying to say. And so, yeah, I mean, it's
Uh-huh. And then we're good.
whew, let me tell you, my stuttering life. So yeah. All right. So here
That's
is
it.
a deep question. So I ask everyone, and
Mhm.
it's split right down the middle, and I respect everyone's response. So I want to ask you, do you consider stuttering a disability?
It's a great question. Yes, I do. I do because like talking and communicating, like for most people, like it should be normal. Like there shouldn't be things anything that can keep you from doing something quote unquote normal, like in an everyday situation, to me is a disability. There can be invisible, there can be visible, but I very like it's something that's you're regular in a way that is keeping you from doing something that's like a regular human function of totally effectively. So yes, I think that's like that matches up with my definition of it. And what's interesting about stuttering, of course, like there's varying levels of it. I mean, exhibits A and B, like it's not like everyone has the same one. So which I think is same with the disability too. Like there's parts of it that can keep you from going. Like people are at different ends of an autism spectrum, for example. Like that's all. Like all those types of things to me is what keeps you from I guess being as productive as you want to be a member of society. So yeah, I think that's a level of disability that is probably, I think, acknowledged by some people, if most or not all, etc. But yeah, I consider it that way, and because of that type of example.
All right, sir. Cool. I thank you very much. So did you ever think that your stutter might hinder your career path?
hmm Yeah, I did a lot. Sometimes I still am like, I hope I can keep this party rolling. It's always in the back of my head in a way. I've just accepted it more is what it is. But I'm not gonna be naive and be like everywhere I go in life is gonna be good to go. Like I did, like there's gonna be some struggles, here and there. I'm fortunate that it hasn't because I don't think I've allowed it to. But I don't think there's a question in my mind that like me like if I was completely confident in every conversation and every phone call I've ever had, I like or will have like I will 100% be a little bit more progressive in my career, and that's just not the case. I'm thinking about that as I go, and it is what it's there now. Of course, I've accepted it, that type of thing. But I when I was growing up, when it got to the point where I didn't really even want to be on the phone and talk to anyone, when I worked like an eighth grade freshman year of high school and worked at a rectory, like at a Catholic parish, and barely wanted to answer the phone because I was nervous. And like, I was like, how am I going to do this? There's just no way I'm going to be able to do this as time goes on. And of course, you just adapt, as we said, and you go. But I very much was like, I don't know how I'm going to pull this off and and do this. And it took a lot of therapy and a lot of confidence building and all that to get there. But it's always going to be here. It's something that you know, um, yeah, that's it. Especially when I'm like with, like if I'm like with people like at a dinner or something and I'm telling a story and like, cause I like to talk, I'm a social person. And if it pops up, like, and we're in the moment, like, right, is exactly the way you are. Like, I'm gonna think about it, and I'm gonna be a little bit embarrassed. Like, my face might go red. Now I'm confident enough where I can move on and laugh about it. But like, that's always going to be there, and I still have this sense that it does make me look inexperienced. It just that's like a soundtrack in my life that I've tuned down a little bit, but it's still there. It's still like something where I'm like, wow, they think I'm not smart. They think that, and they probably don't think that way, but of course that's what I've told myself since I was 11, and I've lowered the volume on that, but it's still there. That's very much a thing, and it always will be, and I've accepted that because like you're never gonna, especially when you have it, and having always had it, like you're never gonna move on in a way. It's there. It's something that's part of your life, and it depends on which way you look at it. But very much when I was a kid, I I wasn't sure what I was going to do for a little while, and it took experience to get to where I'm at. But it's there. That like 11-year-old will always be in me, without question. He's just not as big of a part of my life as he used to be. Is what it comes down to. So that acceptance is there, and I'm fine with it, and I'm good to go, and I wouldn't change it. I mean, I think the whole thing has made me who I am, and has really like given me an invaluable part of my story. I know, same for you, and it's important, and it's something that, like, when I look back, like I'm proud of the way that I've gone about it. I'm proud of the message I have around it, what I've done with it, how it shaped my career, my speaking life, how I'm able to talk about it. And I know it's inspired some people, and I can tell you yours is the same. And so that's like, I wouldn't change that. Like some days I'm like, this sucks. I wish I didn't stutter. And other days I'm like, that's my superpower now. I have this, and it's part of my story. So it's a really funny dichotomy, and it depends on the day, right? But like, it's true. That's as we're able to take things on, and again, in my opinion, it is disability, and move forward with it being part of who you are, but it never dictates you and who you are. That's a really important piece of that. I think it's a victory. And so like that 11-year-old's still there, but I'm like, you know what? He's cool too. So it's all good, and I just kind of keep rolling with it. But that's a great question, because I think a lot of students, and this kind of goes back to your first question of parents and teachers and for advice, like your kid or student is probably thinking that this will impact a lot of their life. And I think the verbiage we use, right, the words that matter that come out of our mouths, that could be a great opportunity for a parent or student or a parent or teacher to really just can confirm with their kid, and validate them that you're going to still make a change. You will make a difference regardless of how you sound right now, and it's up to you to take it. So and people don't forget that. I mean, you don't forget when people are either act awesome to you or awful. Like, you know what I mean? If there's an asset or an asshat, if you will, that you're dealing with, and that's you don't forget those folks, and it's up to you can be that person who is a huge asset and an inspiration as they go on, and it's by your daily operations, the way you treat people, and particularly folks with a stutter. It's important. So, big answer to your question, but I'm very passionate about that, and I think it matters.
No, that was an awesome, awesome answer, because let me tell you, Mr. Jim Love, when I was growing up, I mean, I heard you're stupid, you're slow, no one's ever gonna want to hire you. No one's even going to want to marry you. And so if you hear that, like, for years and years and years, you tend to believe it. And so, after high school, I
Hmm.
thought, what am I going to do? And that is when I went into the mode where, okay, so what can I do? I love computers. And so I thought, okay, I'll do data entry. There's no human interaction. All you do is you you go into a cubicle, and they give you a stack of work and tell you to have all that put into the computer. I was in heaven until, Mr. Jim Love, until the person at who was answering the telephones had to go on lunch or on a break, and they would call over the PAs for help to answer telephone. The old Pedro, I went into the men's room. Hello, stall. It's your old friend Pedro.
I'm
I
back.
would, I'm back. And so I would hang out for half an hour, if it was their lunch break, or, a break, 10 minutes. And so, because it's called survival. Because had I hopped on
Hmm.
that telephone, oh, Jim, a whole different story. Whole different story. You fired. It's like, no, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I have to adapt, because I tell everybody, people who stutter, we are resourceful. We are creative.
Hmm.
We are resilient.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
I am the
Yep.
MacGyver of my time. And so I would find a way
Yeah.
to make it work. And and it worked. However, at some point in my life, it's like, okay, I mean, I can't do this my entire life. And so I had made a choice, and it's a choice, because I didn't have that for over 35 years. But when I turned 40 years old, I said, enough is enough. Enough. I'm exhausted.
Hmm.
I'm going to embrace my stutter. And when I did, Jim, 35
Hmm.
years of shame, guilt, embarrassment, they were gone. They were gone, because because now I love
Simple as
Pedro.
that.
Now I love Pedro. Pedro is awesome. I have a stutter. It doesn't define who I am. It's just what I have.
Mm-hmm.
It's just what I
Mm-hmm.
have. And
Exactly.
so that day onward, a whole new world opened up. I said, I will go and do the things in which I was told I could not do. And I mean, let me tell you, I mean, I had win, a loss. However, I learned from it, had it applied to the next time.
Mm-hmm.
Win. And I mean, let me tell you, it is awesome because after I embraced it, after I accepted it, I mean, I could breathe now. I could breathe because, as you know,
Mm-hmm.
stuttering is exhausting from the time you wake up until the time you go to bed. All of your organs are tense because what if? What if?
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end of the day, when you come home, you don't want to talk to nobody. You want to
No.
sit on that couch in the darkness because you have you have nothing else for anyone else. I mean, I was
Mm-hmm.
drained emotionally, physically, mentally, just completely all drained. But after I embraced it, game on, game on.
It makes a huge difference, no doubt. I love that.
Ooh,
Yeah,
let me
that's
tell
it's
you.
so important, and for more people to hear that is a good thing. It's like it's time, and you get tired of it. It's like, yeah, when your body's reacting that way, it's like you have to move on. You have to live. That's the main thing. You
Yes,
have to
you
start
have to
living and
live
start.
your life,
Yeah,
Jim.
exactly.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's
Mm-hmm.
wonderful. Okay, so
Yeah,
let's switch
yeah.
gears. Let's talk about Dayton. In Texas, we call it Dayton. So so as you know, Dayton is hard for everybody. But if you have a
Mm-hmm.
stutter, it's like a little bit more difficult. How did you navigate dating with having a stutter?
That's a good one. So I would say that I was not I didn't actually start dating like have a like an official like girlfriend date until college. I was just not someone that dated much, and I think I think I always had it in my head that like because I had this, and like people are not attracted to that, and then like I looked younger, the whole thing, I just it wasn't, I never thought I would kind of have that, or anyone would be attracted to that. And it wasn't like a hugely negative thing. I just wasn't thinking about it. And so like up until like eighth grade, high school, like I just wasn't like there wasn't really opportunities, and I whatever. And then college hit, and I just got more confident. I got more confident, and really started, and I was transparent with it right away, which I think, again, I know you said that like is such a big part, and I would never have done that like in grade school or high school. And then finally, like that confidence, I was like, hey, this is gonna come out sometimes. And and it's good, like especially if I have like a drink or two, usually that's when it comes out more. And like that's the way it goes, right? And I'm fine with that. And so that became something that was just accepted, and it never really popped up that much as I got more confident with it. But I would say, I mean, again, like probably didn't like fully date like till like I was 19 or 20, and there was it's just the way it worked out. But I would assume and imagine that like the confidence I didn't have was a big part of that. Like I would never like approach someone, like a girl, to ask her out on a date. It just like wasn't even in my repertoire, like in high school. And that was like a lot of soundtracks and things that I'd heard in my life that really did that. And so finally the confidence, started coming. And once that happened, then I was able to really see, I could actually do this, and it could be, and it could be fun, um, and then I went for it, and it worked out well, so it was good. I mean, I had some bad experiences, but for the most part, only dated a few people and then married one of them, so it worked out well. Um, but yeah, I don't, up until, I mean, at least until late high school, and then into early college is when I've finally was like, maybe I should start, dating, and got more confident in it. So yeah, that's a good question, because I'm not the best example of this, because I feel I just like I didn't have any horror stories from it, in a way where I was like, oh, like let's try this, and then I would start stuttering, etc. Because I didn't go out on dates. That wasn't really my life. And confidence is probably a big part of it. But yeah, it's interesting because a lot of people are surprised. They're like, really, you never? I'm like, yeah, I kind of didn't really do anything until college. That was pretty much it. And then I like 2 or 3 girls later, and I ended up getting married. So it worked. I guess it worked itself out.
See, it's all good. It's all good. I mean, because, um, I'm not the best one. Also, at this because I went on a blind date. You know, hadn't dated at all until I was 25.
Hmm.
I went on a blind date,
Oh wow. Yeah.
and you know what? The moment I locked eyes, that was it. That was it. And this February, we have been together for 27 years. So, I mean, it's all good. It's all good. It's a
That's
blessing.
awesome. I
It's
love
a
it.
blessing.
It's when you know. Yep, absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely. And and
And
there and I. Oh yeah, go ahead.
no, go, 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 go.
So that and the part of that I can imagine you're the same is like the support that you get now of like that's the case. This is me, and you've accepted it, so it's your fault. Like it's a really good thing. Like they come in and they know what to expect, and now we can live our lives in a way that we to be true to ourselves, essentially, which is
Yes.
important.
And I mean, you make a great point because they are on your side and they are cheering you on. And that is amazing to
Yes.
have that one person in the whole world who knows you, who
Hmm.
knows you. And if
Hmm.
you are struggling, they are right there, I mean, helping you and supporting you. And I mean, I think that's just
Hmm.
awesome. Yeah. That's just awesome.
That's great. Yeah, I just realized I look like I'm in a haunted house. I'm gonna go turn on the lights in this bedroom
Okay.
here. Give me give
All
me give
right.
me 1 second.
It's all good.
Much better. Much better.
All right. It's all good. It's all good. All right. Okay, now we are going to switch gears a little bit. So, what do you think about all this new technology? You have Google Home, you have Alexa, and then you have the one that starts with an S that I cannot say. It's with Apple. Do you think all this new AI technology is helpful or hurtful for people who stutter?
Hmm. I haven't really thought about it. I guess I, I mean in a sense like you get practice with it like talking at home. Like you have to talk to these things. So I think that's probably helpful. I mean it's obviously not a real person, but it's still you being able to at least like you have to talk out loud in your home and probably when people are around and command to do things. So I think in that sense it's probably helpful. But like of course the social human interactions are always going to be the biggest things that will get more practice. But in general, speaking and having practice doing that is a good thing. So I think in that sense, it's probably positive. And it's probably gets you what you need, and you're able to speak it into existence, and that's always a good thing.
See, and you bring up the the number one answer that that I get is um is that if you are a person who stutters, this is a great way to practice because it is not a human being, and and
Hmm.
therefore it will,
Hmm.
it will help you to get acclimated into this new AI. My main uh, concern is that it doesn't give you enough time to respond. I mean, I need at least half a minute to
Right.
breathe,
Right.
and and they want an answer in 1 second.
Right away. Yeah, that is difficult. I could see
Yeah.
that part for sure. Like
Yes.
it's like
Right.
the pressure's on almost. Like I got to keep
Yes.
going.
Yes. However, here is the awesome part. There are a couple of colleges here, in which they are creating a new AI algorithm for people who stutter to help with Google Home, Alexa, and the other ones. So I think that is really, really, really awesome.
That's fantastic. The more you can get technology working in our favor, the better. So that's wonderful, and I feel like there's probably more to come too. And it probably won't stop here. So yeah, I'm a big fan of that.
Exactly, exactly. Okay, now, so what is a challenge speech wise that you had to overcome and how did you do it?
Yes. So, the biggest one I have, like, speech wise, is if I ask a question, like, to someone. So, let's say I'm ordering something, and I ask, like, "Hi, can I please have a Sprite and a Diet Coke?" And when they like, and I prepare myself for the way I'm gonna say it, because I'm like, okay, like, I'm gonna say it this way, it's gonna go well. And then when they say, "What was that?" and ask me again, me repeating it is the one where, because I'm not prepared to do that. That's when it becomes a problem. And I kind of I go so fast when I repeat it. I'm like, "Oh, can I have a and I'm like, okay, like, if they say what, take a breath, and I'm like, "Oh, yeah," so but, like, me in motion, never, like, it's hard for me to, like, take a step back, breathe for a second, and do it, but it's always been the one where, like, 10 times out of 10, I will have a moment. I'll have a block when I go up and ask for something and they make me repeat it, and I think it's because 'cause I've prepared my mind for the first round, and I'm not prepared for the second round of what was that, and so taking a like, relax, you know, like, just ask it again. And also, it's okay to do that. Like, it's okay if that happens and it comes out that way, because they're still gonna wait and it'll be fine. But yeah, that is always the number one that, like, I have. And then now, of course, it's in my head. So naturally, every time I go off to do something like that, I'm just assuming it's gonna happen, and I've accepted that. But that's been for my whole life. That's the one I know is always a big one. And then weirdly enough, like, words that with W's, I just, like, W's have always been a word that I don't do that well on. And so when I have, like, a sentence that has a couple of them, that's always when I'm, like, a little bit flustered. But if I'm just in motion and going and confident, that's usually when it helps. But those two, I think, are my biggest ones, and I just have to remind myself, like, it's okay, just relax, take a breather, kind of rush it because I talk fast, right? So I just gotta chill, take a breath, say it again, good to go. And I think in my head, like, people in the service industry are moving fast, and they want you to move fast too. So that's when I'm always like, gotta rush, gotta rush. But chill, relax, it'll be fine. And that, yeah, that's really, it's one that's the most noticeable for me, for sure, like, without question.
See, and I mean, you bring up awesome, awesome points. And one of the benefits of being a little older and being at a restaurant, I can you know pull a waiter to me, and tell him,
Hmm.
hey, you know what, I have a stutter, so I may, what I need is your patience and da da da, and then if I get it, you'll get a big old tip. And let me tell you, I mean, I I had I had a waiter that had the patience of Job because nothing was coming out, Jim. Nothing was coming out, but he was right there.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
he had the
Waiting, yeah.
excellent eye contact. I mean, he had respect, integrity, da, 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 da. And when I got it out, he's like, you know, you know, uh, thank you, sir, and da da da. And then, at the end of the meal, I gave him $100. I said, sir, thank you.
Awesome,
It's all I
awesome.
want. It's all
It
I
makes a
want.
difference. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's it. And I
yeah.
love it because you can get. I mean, I think the more, to your point, like, the more practice and the more, like, guidance and education you can give, the better. And then you're going to have a better experience, and so are they. They're going to feel like they did something, they learned something, and that's a big yeah, that's a really big ripple effect that can happen from all of it. And I just love that. I think we need to do that more often. Just be cognizant of, like, where we're at, and recognize that, like, some people don't have experience dealing with people with stutters, and that's, like, something that we can use to our advantage to be like, hey, here's what's up, and thank you, and I'll give you $100 when it's over, right? Like, it's a really good way to formulate a community like that with allies, if you will, of just, they get it, they understand, and they're willing to help.
I mean, 100%, sir. Exactly. Okay, now, do do you think it's okay to stutter, or is it important to keep chasing the fluency gods?
It's okay to stutter. Yeah, it's okay. And I think a big reason for that is, a big part of my message is about being authentic and being who you are. And I know you can work at what you're doing. I mean, it's a big difference between, like, it's obviously like to be perfect at it, or like to really just fully focus on being, fluent, etc. But you have to acknowledge who you are and appreciate that, and not let it, like, so when you know you have a stutter and it's part of your life, not letting it define you is the important part. So, like, it's okay, it's there, like, let it roll. You can work at things, you can I mean, proactively get better and proactively practice, do all the things that we've mentioned here, of like, don't settle. Like, obviously, if you know that you have something holding you back, continue to have goals, like maybe you want to do this, maybe you want to do more, and push yourself. But don't feel like you can't do the thing that you're born with, like, the unfortunate thing that you're, born with. Like, don't let that hold you back from doing it, if that makes sense. So, like, push yourself, grow, learn, inspire, like, acknowledge who you are and what you're all about, and be authentic in it. And don't let it hold you back from doing whatever it is you want to do, because it's not something that should get in the way of your whole life. Like, it should be something that's there, and you acknowledge it. But don't feel like you have to, like, eradicate something that's like a firm part. Just learn with it, and maybe you'll make, significant steps along the way where you've gotten better and all that kind of stuff. That can happen a lot. A lot of people have that. But I think you really have to be okay with who you are. That's a huge part of it, and a big part of my message too.
How cool. That is a awesome, awesome response, sir. I thank you so much for that. And
Hmm.
uh what has what has your stutter taught you?
It's I think it's taught me to appreciate people's struggles a little bit more, and know that, like, people who have, I'm gonna say disability, because we use that word, and that's the way I define it. People who have disabilities, like, I think oftentimes we feel sorry for folks, or we're like, oh, like, you poor thing. And I think what it's learned for me to do is actually, like, learn from them. Like, tell me about it. Like, how do you do it? Like, tell me how you beat it. Tell me how, like, what are some great ways that you get through it, and to not, like, automatically look at people as a victim, and to really understand, like, they do go through some stuff, but here's how they conquer it. Here's how they get better, and here's how they stay positive. And that, for me, like, because it's a big part of my life, right? And like, I know that about me, and the things we've, had to go through. Same with you, and it's made me appreciate that, like, a lot of people have things that they're battling, but it's not all doom and gloom. That's a big part. Like, they're battling it, they're moving forward, and they're doing a lot with their life. And I tend to look at that part versus, like, oh, that sucks. They have something going on, and I feel bad for them. And to really, like, meet them, understand what they have, and see, like, what cool ways are they doing it to approach it, and how can I learn from that, like, for my own life. And it's just a different mindset. I think a lot of people who don't have something they struggle with that much have the other one, and it's not bad. It's just it's taught me a different perspective that has been a lot more helpful in gaining meaningful relationships with people who have something I don't know much about, and I want to learn, and it's made me really curious, and just able to be like like a student in a way. Like, tell me more. Tell me how you did that, and what can I take away from this? And that's really where I think the big difference is for me.
How cool. I mean, just whew, that was awesome, sir. So what advice would you give to another person who stutters?
Yeah. I mean, the first one, like, I, I love that, like, saying you're not alone. I think that's so big. People realizing that the thing that they hate about themselves, probably that's how I was when I was a kid. I didn't like it. A lot of us have this, and number one is that, like, you're not alone. But number two, like, let this become your superpower. Let this be the thing that drives you to do exactly what you want to do. So I say that in the sense of, like, I was terrified of public speaking when I was a kid. I never would want to do that. And this thing I have drove me to be like, I'm going to overcome this obstacle, and I'm going to talk about it. And that's what I'm going to do, and have it be like, that's the thing that, like, motivates a lot of people. It's like, I know what it's like to overcome adversity and overcome an obstacle every single day. I do that, and it's made me better. And I think if people can channel that stutter into what makes them, and it doesn't have to be speaking, of course, but whatever that thing is that can make them take it head on, and, like, acknowledge it. Because the more that you try and not, like, let it be part of your life, the more it's going to creep up on you. If you're like just shove it away, like you have to acknowledge it. You have to be like, this is a thing that I have. It exists. It's there. But here's the way I'm going to take it. I'm going to take it in a different direction that's going to fool a lot of people. That's going to surprise a lot of people, and that's where it becomes your superpower. And I think what we can do that. You and I do that all the time, and it's that would be like, that's my challenge to people who don't feel like this is going to keep you from living out your dream. Let it be the reason why you live out your dream. Let it really motivate you to keep going, to keep pushing, and recognize that you're going to inspire people along the way, including yourself. And there's a lot of goodness that can come from that. So harness it, and like take the energy you have that's like, ugh, like this is stupid. Harness that into being like, oh, I'm gonna turn up. I'm gonna like make this happen, and I'm gonna make a difference. And when you hit that point, it takes a little while. It helps, and it really helps to go again. I know we've talked about this, going from a stutterer to a person who stutters. That's really like where you can take this and be like, okay, well now I'm an awesome human being who has this thing that's going to drive me to my next step, and that's really where I've taken it, and I'm really proud of that because it took a long time to get to that point. And some days I'm still like, I wish tomorrow I could wake up and be like not have that, but like other days I'm like, I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna keep going, and that's what I have to do, and I've been called to do that. So that's one long piece of advice, but I would really challenge that perspective to be a reality for them, and it helps to know when you got people on your side. You got a community that you can rely on, and people you can touch base with and stay in contact with, and yeah, I think that's really important.
See, and that is great, great advice. It's wonderful, wonderful. So here is our last question, and it's a big one. This is our last question. So
Mhm.
here we go. So if you had the opportunity to be on the world stage and to give the world insight about stuttering, what message would you convey?
I would say it's like stuttering is one of the biggest overthinking tools in the world. Like if you know a stutterer, they are constantly in their head. Um, and that's like a thing, they're thinking about their next statement, they're thinking about what's going to happen, their worst case scenario people. But stutterers at the same time are the most like passionate, resilient people you can possibly imagine. And if you harness them and utilize them for the talents they have and not focus on a thing that happens to be part of their speech, you're going to get a rock star. And you're going to get someone who's, if you take a chance on them and motivate them to be who they are, to accept who they are and embrace it, you're going to get someone who's like ready to rock and prove a lot of people wrong. Like, to prove really that they can do this, and each next step is a motivation for them. So like, take a chance on someone who stutters and see what happens, and be that champion for them that's going to let them hit that next level, because they've been through a lot, and they've experienced a lot, and they want to prove a lot of people in their life wrong. And that's a powerful tool and something that you can harness, and we're here talking about it. This is who we are, this is what we're about, and I want to just encourage people, like, hit that next level and give someone a chance to really succeed, and watch how much it's going to work out for them.
Wow, I have goosebumps, Mr. Jim Love. That woo, that was powerful.
Yeah.
That was powerful. That was
Awesome.
awesome. Woo, hold on, you got me sweating over here in Texas. Woo, okay.
It's
That
Texas. Yeah.
I'm telling you that I mean, you know, your your words are powerful, and that was just an awesome, awesome
Thank you.
re- re- response. And so, we are at the end of our interview, and I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you, Jim. I mean, this has been, almost an hour and a half, and I mean, the time just flew by. I was having, as we say here in Texas, the bestest conversation today. It was just awesome, and I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. And so I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you.
Of course, Pedro, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me on. I mean, I'm inspired by you and your story and the work that you do, and it's important to have this. And it's important to have this discussion. I'm happy to do it. I was looking forward to this for a while, and just excited to be part of it, and really thankful that we get to spread our messages in the way that we do, and I just can't wait to keep communicating with you on social media and everybody else, and just keep the acceptance party rolling, and keep having fun at it. And so yeah, it's a joy to be here and really an honor and excited to do more in the future.
All right, sir. I thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, now I have the best, you know, g- g- global listeners. I mean, this podcast is in 58 countries on 6 continents. I'm still hoping on that one person in Antarctica, and so I can be on all continents. But you know what? It's a goal. It's a goal. And so, how would my listeners, if they wanted to reach out to you, how what would be the best way to have them do that?
Yeah, so I have a website for like my speaking life, which is www.goauthenticyou.com. I'm also on Twitter, Jim_M_love. I'm on Instagram, Jim M Love 23, Facebook, all the things. And then I have an email. Obviously, if you can go to my website and check it out. But yeah, come my way. I also have a podcast. I should throw that out there. It's the podcast is Hustling Sideways, and Pedro was just on it a few weeks ago. It was fantastic, and we're going on episode 45 here shortly, so I'm really excited for that. And so yeah, reach out and connect. And I would love, I'm a speaker. I speak about being authentic, using your voice, and overcoming obstacles. A lot of things I talked about today is what I speak about, and I specialize with students, but I can talk to if you're 8 years old or 88 years old. I can talk, and I love it. I've been doing it for about 8 years. It's been a blast. So hit me up, come at me, let me know you listened and enjoyed it, and just excited to be part of this community that you formed. That's obviously amazing, and I love the global aspect, and really honored to be part of that. So yeah, come say hello.
That is awesome, sir. Okay, now, uh, uh, are you on TikTok?
I'm not on TikTok, but I'm told I should be.
You
That's the
should
word on the
be on
street.
TikTok because I'm on TikTok. I don't do the dances because
Oh, that's even better.
I'm not really coordinated, but I go out there and I mean, I do, a couple of videos here and there, but I mean, you would be awesome for TikTok. You would, just
I think
an
I might.
FYI,
Yeah.
just an FYI from ME to YOU. Just, it's all good. All right. And so I want to say, I thank you,
Perfect.
thank you, thank you. Just one more time. We will do this again. We will do this again because I mean,
Yes.
I mean, you are just awesome to talk to. You you radiate positivity, and I mean, in talking to you, I felt that, and so I want to, just one more time. I thank you, thank you, thank you. You have an awesome day. Take care, be well, and stay safe.
Thank you so much, sir. It's a pleasure, and same to you. And I'm looking forward to continuing this relationship.
Awesome, sir. All right, have a good one.